Episode number 211 of Chalk Talk. I am your host, Shane Haff, and you can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. I'm joined today by the best co-host in the game. You have heard him on the Saturday morning spread right here on the Eagles Pinpool Network. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. Mark, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. The Eagles won last night, and Notre Dame did not get lowered in the rankings like the haters wanted them to. So it's a good little Tuesday for me.
All right. Always love to have good little Tuesdays. It's kind of nice. I woke up this morning thinking, this is nice. I didn't wake up with a headache because I usually do when I'm up super late, like I was for post game last night. I don't know. It's just the I'm getting older thing, and I guess when I don't get my at least 7.5, 7-ish hours of sleep, I'll wake up with a headache, and I didn't this morning. Thought that was great. It showed up like an hour later, so I went the whole roller coaster ride, but we got rid of it all. Now we're ready to dive into a Week 10 NFL slate that had some good games, but honestly, had some stinkers too. Some games that I thought might be good that just weren't. But let's dive into it here, and we'll briefly talk about this Thursday game, and I do mean briefly because this was one of those stinkers. Denver beats the Raiders 10-7. It's kind of funny that the first and last game of the week were both 10-7, but this one was a truly disgusting football game that really isn't worth talking about. I'll just say this. Both of these quarterbacks stink. There have not been enough QB guys on Twitter admitting they were wrong for propping Geno Smith up as a top 10 quarterback. And Bo Nix is the worst quarterback that people like to pretend is decent. Like, if he was the 20th best quarterback in the NFL, the Broncos would have a legitimate Super Bowl shot, but he is not. And they aren't because of that, in my opinion. But the big thing in this game that you take away is NFL history. It's only the second time in NFL history both teams have had more penalties than first downs in a game. And the other one was a battle of expansion teams in 1976, the Seahawks and the Bucks. So that was Thursday Night Football. Like I said, not really worth talking about. Do you want to mention anything about it before we move on?
I cannot believe that Shane is putting me in the position of defending Bo Nix. But we were trading some DMs. I think he might be the 20th best quarterback. I'd have to look at it, but I don't think he's a bottom 10 quarterback that's starting every week.
I mean, maybe if you are including like Davis Mills and some of those guys here. I've just got to. I'm going to share my screen with you. This is my favorite graph that came out recently. Most yards left on the field by a quarterback. Misses or uncatchable passes when a target was wide open.
He's missing meatballs for sure this year.
Bo Nix leads the rest of the league by 200 plus yards.
Yeah, I am not a Bo Nix guy. Last year, I was pretty steadfast that Sean Payton was the best situation anybody could have ever possibly went to as a rookie quarterback. But he does show flashes in these fourth quarters of games, like to the point where we were making my one chat that I'm in, we call him Tebow Nix because he disappears for 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter he comes raring back. I mean, we saw it against the Eagles in a small capacity a little bit, and he's done it a couple times. Obviously, the Giants game, and he looked really good, and the Cowboys game was different. That was just a beatdown, but. He has had these flashes that it's hard for me to completely crap on him. But I do agree with the notion that if you had a legit guy in there, they'd be a more serious contender.
Yeah. All right. We've already talked about this game more than it deserved already. Let's go to the early game on Sunday, an overtime classic in Berlin. Atlanta loses to the Colts 25-31. Daniel Jones, I think, is just turning back into a pumpkin before our eyes. He takes 7 sacks in this game, throws a pick, fumbles 3 times. But Jonathan Taylor continues to put up MVP-type numbers. He rushed for 244 yards and 3 touchdowns on 32 carries. He also added 42 receiving yards. 228 of his yards were after contact, which is the first time someone has crossed 200 yards after contact since 2017. And this game was back and forth in the fourth quarter. Indy scores a touchdown to go up 5. Their 2-point conversion attempt fails. Then Atlanta scores a touchdown and gets a 2-point conversion to go up 3 with under 2 to play. And then the Colts get into field goal range. They send it to overtime. Then their defense forces a punt, and the offense puts it away. And so the Colts end up getting out of here with a win. And, speaking of bad quarterbacks, can we talk about Michael Penix Jr., who goes 12 of 28 in this game for 177 yards. He's sacked 3 times, fumbles once. He struggled to throw on target when he was protected. When he was pressured, he had no answers. The Falcons go 0 of 8 on third downs in this game. Just kind of a brutal offensive performance from the Falcons, but honestly, it was a really good game.
Since this tweet that I have on the screen for our YouTube listeners from Jordan Schultz, a.k.a. Coffee Boy, after the Falcons beat the Bills to get to, what would the record have been at that point? I'm trying to take a look here. Their record would have been 3-2 at that point. Jordan Schultz wanted us to put the Falcons in the conversation among the NFC's elite because they beat the Bills to get to 3-2. This was, mind you, about 10 to 14 days after they lost 30-0 to the Carolina Panthers. Since this tweet, the Falcons are 0-4. And I think you can blame this graphic, this tweet. So I would like to nominate this. I think we do have to have some sort of awards at the end of the year. And when we do, that's my tweet of the year from Jordan Schultz, the elite graphic with the Falcons at 3-2. Anyway, we have the comment about Penix. You talked about Penix being bad. Bo Nix is better than Penix. Like, Penix is a true bottom 5 to 7 guy. Like, he's had a couple moments here and there, but you watch him and it's like you're watching the Oregon football team because all you see is ducks.
Nice. I like it.
One. Yeah, but it does feel like it. It is stunning the amount of balls that are like, really? Like, that just flutter and they're underthrown and die on the way. There's not a lot of zip on the ball like it felt like he had in college. I was never like a big Penix guy, but even I'm kind of stunned that he's not. I thought at the very worst he'd be a pretty good thrower of the football. Like, I thought his issues would come with injuries and some issues with the pocket awareness and things like that. But I thought he'd at least be a pretty accurate quarterback who put the ball where he wanted it to go, and that was just kind of his thing at Washington. But I am out on Penix, and I think it's at the point where the Falcons need to be considering their options this offseason.
Yeah, well, Kirk Cousins isn't one of those options.
No,
so.
He is not.
Brett Eclipse had... Go ahead.
Just before we move off that, who would have thought going into 2026 that you feel good about neither of those options? They went out and they signed Kirk Cousins for $1 billion and draft Michael Penix top 10, and 2 years later, it looks like they might need a starting quarterback that is not one of those two guys.
I would have thought it.
Yeah, maybe.
I hated the entire process.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, Brett Eclipse asked if it was Todd Gurley that put up that 200 yards after contact. I cannot remember who it was that did it in 2017.
Good guess. 2017, that would have been his.
Yeah, it might have been. I honestly can't remember.
Todd Gurley, one of the craziest careers I think in NFL history. Just so quick. But at one point he was maybe the best player in football for like a year there. Yeah, just crazy career.
Yeah. All right, let's keep rolling to Chicago, where Chicago beats the Giants 24-20. They also end Brian Daboll's head coaching career for the New York Giants as they moved on from him after this game. Chicago trailed 20-10 late in this game. They got the ball back on their own 9-yard line with 6 minutes and 13 seconds to play, but they went on a 9-play, 91-yard touchdown drive, forced a 3-and-out, scored another touchdown, and then stopped the Giants to win the game. Once again, for the Giants, Jackson Dart was the entire offense. He threw for 242 yards. He rushed for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, as has been the case far too often already, he left the field again with an injury. So this is the third time in 7 career starts that he has been evaluated for a concussion. Now, he's only been ruled out once, but his play style is reckless, and he will not survive his rookie contract if he doesn't change it. And I promise I put this bullet point under the game before they fired Dable, but I said the coaching staff has already proven their only concern is using him to save their jobs, and this will not end well. And they fired Brian Dable, deservedly so. I mean, obviously Jackson Dart has some reckless traits, and it's your job as a coach to coach them out of that and to work with them. And Brian Dable has no interest in doing that. His entire interest is trying to save himself for another year by using Jackson Dart any way possible. And that became blatantly obvious in the Thursday night game against the Eagles, where he went into the medical tent and was screaming at medical staff to get his, I mean, they ended up clearing him, but a quarterback that looked concussed back onto the field. Brian Daboll can't be trusted with a young quarterback like that while he's on the hot seat. And so the Giants fired him, as they should have. And, you know, hopefully they can get the Jackson Dart thing under control, because he's a fun player. And, you know, this could be a fun team next year if you make some smart moves in the offseason, you land the right coach, and you've got Jackson Dart and Malik Neighbors. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what Cam Scatterbo is going to look like, you know, moving forward, but this is an attractive job opening. But they got to protect Jackson Dart, and Brian Daboll clearly wasn't going to do that.
Also a great job when you factor in the dumpster fire perennially that I think Dallas is going to be until, you know, not to be morbid, but someone is no longer in charge there, is how I'll phrase that. And then Washington, I mean, they're the oldest team in the NFL and don't have a lot of picks to supplement that this year in the draft. So if you're the Giants, you're looking at a team where you feel like you can immediately kind of be the second best team in that division if you're a head coaching candidate. Now, it's a weird crop of potential head coach candidates. We will dive more into that. That's something I really, really love. Is the if you're a recent listener, I'm a big nerd about the coaching carousel. And I'll say this. It seems to me like the belle of the ball is going to be Clint Kubiak, Seattle's offensive coordinator. Obviously, the bloodline ties to his dad, Gary. But he's done a great job on his own. And even if you look at San Fran, when he was the pass game coordinator there, it was like their best passing season under Purdy. But I could very easily see Clint Kubiak headed to New York. Because I think it might be the best job available with Dart looking the way he did and the other things that you mentioned. And now the negative part of that job is Joe Shane, because it's an absolute joke if that guy gets fired. I actually don't think Brian Dable is like nearly as bad of a head coach as I think people will have you believe. Now, the way he put Jackson Dart in harm's way is a different conversation. That's something that you can't have, and that was the like we've talked about so many times with, you know, drafting rookie quarterbacks with guys who are on the hot seat. That's the problem. Like that's always the problem. There's two different interests from the team wanting the quarterback to develop and the head coach wanting him to save his job, and we saw that on the other side of the ball with the Chicago Bears, last year, which brings me to another point. Or I guess it's a stat. Shane likes to have me guess stats sometimes, so I'm going to turn it around and have Shane guess it. Ben Johnson just got his 6th win in 9 games as a Chicago Bears head coach. How many games did it take Matt Eberflus to win 6 games as a Chicago Bears head coach?
Oh, man. How long was he the head coach for the Bears?
That's a
now,
good question.
Was it 2 years, 3 years? I know it was 1 year too many.
I think it was 3 years, I want to say.
It's 3 years. The first year was awful.
3 years. 3 years fired halfway through the third.
First year was awful. So it was in the second year at least. I'll say like 25 games.
27, pretty close.
Okay.
So it took Ben Johnson 9. What Matt Eberflus took 27 games to do. Obviously, different situations, but just a fun stat. And someone had a question: what even are the 2025 Bears? And I'll tell you what the 2025 Bears are. They're a team that has one of the best head coaches in the sport, and they're overachieving based on their talent. And he's slowly developing Caleb and getting some of the bozo plays, I think, out of Caleb's system and trying to refine him and get him into the system. And Caleb, to his credit, is money in big time spots right now. Down the stretch of these games to close out these games, there's not been many quarterbacks that have been better with late game drives this year than Caleb Williams. So you feel really good about what he's able to do in those moments, and I think Ben is shaping him to be the quarterback that he wants him to be. And they're 6-3 because they're beating the teams that they should beat and that they're supposed to be. Is it more dramatic than it should be sometimes? Absolutely. But I think Ben Johnson should get all the credit in the world. And we have a comment asking if we're talking about Dable. And one last thing, just to tie a bow on this, and like we talked about, a little bit of a different situation with Dable putting Dart in harm's way. I have a take that I don't know if I've said this on the show before or asked this question. What's the point of firing a head coach in the middle of the season? Like, what does it do? Like, you're trying to win more games when you're 2-8. Obviously, taking away like the Dart thing. Like, if you think the guy stinks, wouldn't you want him to like just finish out the year and keep losing? Like, or on the flip side, I get it if you're like if you have a guy that you think maybe could be a head coach, like allegedly the Giants feel that way about Kafka, so they want to get him at least a chance and a look at it. I kind of think firing a head coach is just like a lazy PR tactic to get the fans like distracted, to be honest.
I think there's player development things involved as well. Like you can't just be like we're 2-8. We're obviously going to fire this guy at the end of the year. Just let it fly because you end up wasting a half a season of development. So I think there's elements of that. You can start the process of investigating potential candidates and things. So
You don't
I
think
think
that they do that anyway?
I don't know. I don't know on that,
Like
but I
you don't think the Dolphins are investigating potential candidates right now?
probably.
That's what I mean. Like I actually kind of respect the way that the Dolphins are handling it, to be honest. Like
Maybe they shouldn't be because that's our next game.
yeah,
Uh,
let's go.
well, actually, hold on. Let me mention this. The Bears are 6-3, but they are through the soft part of their schedule. 8 of their final 9 games come against divisional opponents or teams with winning records, and so it is going to be a tough back half of the season for the Bears. But we'll see how they do.
Next week is the biggest Bears game since the double doink. Like unequivocally for me, the biggest Bears. They're 6-3. If you win in Minnesota, they are 7-3. Shane, whose line is it anyway? Bears at Vikings. The 6-3 Bears at the 4-5 Vikings.
Bears -2.5.
Vikings -4.
That's insane.
Vegas thinks the Bears are fake, phony frauds. I will be on the Bears in that game just because I think that's a crazy line. But if the Bears win that game and you're 7-3, the schedule's hard down the stretch, but it becomes a lot more doable. And it's going to come down to Bears or Niners for the last wild card spot, and they play in Week 17 in San Francisco. So if the Bears can bank as many wins as possible, these next 2 games for the Bears at Vikings and then Steelers at home are very, very winnable games. You need to at least split those, and if you can win both, you might like be able to punch your ticket.
Yeah. So okay, so on to you mentioned the Dolphins. Let's talk about them. So Miami fired their GM this week. They traded Jalen Phillips. There were rumors about Jalen Waddle being shopped. It looked like they were packing things in. And then they dominated the Bills 30-13. So Devon Achane rushed for 2 touchdowns. He had 51 receiving yards. Jalen Waddle had 84 yards and a touchdown. 4 of the 6 Bills' first half possessions were 3 and outs. 1 picked up a first down and then had a turnover on downs. And then 1 had a James Cook fumble. Josh Allen also threw an interception in the end zone in the second half. Josh Allen had a fumble in the second half. And this was against a defense that A, hasn't been able to stop anyone all year. B, traded Jalen Phillips at the trade deadline, who had an awesome game in his debut, by the way, for the Eagles. And C, Chop Robinson was inactive for them. And so this was a dreadful, dreadful performance for Buffalo. Shout out to the Dolphins for putting up a fight and getting a big win against a divisional rival.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say on this. I bet the Bills when they were down like 23-13 or something like that to try to get them back in the game, and that was not a smart bet. In a live bet to get some, I got some plus money odds on Josh Allen against Miami, and I thought I have to take it. But I'm not gonna freak out too much about the Bills' offense here. Like they fumbled it twice on the Miami side of the field. Josh threw a pretty unlucky interception. If I'm gonna freak out about anything, it's what we've seen before against this Bills defense. I think it was that Falcons game that Jordan Schultz tweeted about that I referenced earlier, where they were gashed by Bijan and Algier on the ground. And this Bills defense is very susceptible to being gashed in the run game. So you see Devon Achane, 174 yards, 8 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns, two really long rushes there. That's the concern for Buffalo. So what are the kind of matchups that could exploit that in the AFC? Well, you look at Baltimore. If they can get in, Derrick Henry is a tough matchup for that. You look at, of course, the Indianapolis Colts with Jonathan Taylor and what he's doing, and in what otherwise I would say, oh, the Bills have the edge in that matchup. That's a tough matchup now if the Bills' run defense is this bad. So if I have any real takeaway from this game, it's the Bills have some stuff to figure out in terms of their run defense. And also, this is unrelated, but apparently Deone Walker is like an absolute beast. So I want all the credit in the world for Deone Walker.
You did love Deone Walker, for sure. Well, you mentioned Baltimore and their rushing attack. And so let's go to Minnesota next and talk Baltimore beating Minnesota 27-19. And suddenly, the Ravens have won 3 straight. They were 1-5. Now they're 4-5. It wasn't necessarily pretty in this one. They trailed the Vikings 10-3 early. They went 3-and-out on 3 of their first 4 drives. And then they trailed 10-9 at halftime after they settled for a field goal on all 3 of their red zone trips. But they got an interception on the first drive of the second half. They kicked a field goal. Then they forced a fumble and scored a touchdown. And then they forced a turnover on downs to take a lead in the third quarter. The Vikings went for it 5 times on 4th down in this game. And they only converted twice. And yeah, we've got Brett Eclipse mentioning they had 8 false starts at home in this game, which is insane. Justin Jefferson was targeted 12 times in this game, but he only had 4 receptions, and there were 2 interceptions when throwing to him. And so you look at this Ravens team, and after an awful start on the defense, 35.4 points per game is what they allowed in their first 5 games. They have only allowed 14.5 points per game in their last 4. They've also forced 8 turnovers in the last 4 games after forcing only 2 in the first 5. And so obviously Lamar coming back is important, and Lamar coming back helps your defense because the offense can stay on the field better. But this has been a turnaround from the defense too, and it was very much needed because we were talking about their lack of defense early, even before Lamar got hurt.
Yeah, the Ravens are. You can lock them in to the playoffs. It's all figured out. They went. They are minus 300 now to win the AFC North, and the Steelers are like plus 200. So you look at that Pittsburgh loss. You look at Baltimore's upcoming schedule here. They go at Browns, Jets at home, Bengals at home, Steelers at home, at Bengals. Like they're gonna go 5-0. I honestly do believe that. Maybe they go 4-1, but I think we're talking about a team that come Christmas week, we're going to be talking about a 9-5 at worst, 8-6 Ravens team that's already atop the AFC North with another Steelers game to play, and then it gets tougher for them. They do close Patriots at home, at Packers, at Steelers. So they do close tougher, but I think they're going to build up some equity here in this easy stretch. And I've actually heard some people being like, there were some Steelers fans out there. I think this was before the Steelers laid an egg for everybody to see on national television on Sunday night. But after this game, they were like, "Oh, the Ravens didn't even look very good. The Vikings had a chance at the end to come back and tie it." The the Ravens were up 2 touchdowns until there were 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, like for all of the fourth quarter. So this was a game that, at least from when I was tracking it, it felt like the Ravens pretty handily had a handle on this game, in my opinion. So I think the Ravens, not much more to say than what we've said already. But Minnesota, I regret to inform everybody that I have like a new guy I hate, and I hate JJ McCarthy. I really really hate him, and the 9 alter ego nonsense. And he's the kids out there talk about aura farming. I have never seen someone aura farm more than JJ McCarthy. The guy wants to be like Jalen Hurts so bad. Like he wants to be like the guy who all he cares about is winning and the team will die for him and all that stuff. He just rubs me all the wrong ways, and I think he's also bad at football. So that's an unnecessary or an unfortunate reality for the Vikings. But I regret to inform everyone that I have someone now that I am other than Dan Campbell and the Lions that I get to root against every week.
Yeah, it feels very corny and very forced, which I don't know. Maybe he's always been like that, whatever. And I honestly don't care that much, but I just don't think he's a good quarterback. And I didn't think that in the draft. I thought it was insane that people considered him a first round pick. And, been wrong on quarterbacks before. And we've seen quarterbacks like Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones, although I kind of think the Daniel Jones thing is still just he's not that good of a quarterback. But we've seen these guys be cast to the side and make something of their career. And so, maybe that happens for McCarthy at the end of the day has started like 4 games at this point, but it has not looked good for sure.
Yeah, and I also I hate Michigan for those out there who don't know. So I'm a little biased and hate JJ from his Michigan days. But yeah, I outside of that, I've never seen a quarterback draft prospect get more credit for like doing less. Like it almost became how little he was asked to do at Michigan became a positive because it was like it's like the Simpsons meme or scene. I don't know why it's a scene, but behind door A is a boat and behind door B is unknown, and it was like, well, it could be anything. It could even be a boat. Like it kind of felt like that was what people did with JJ McCarthy, like not being asked to do anything in college. It's like, well, if he wasn't asked to do it, it doesn't mean he can't do it. I mean, like, I don't know if that made sense, but I cannot. The way JJ was talked about as a draft prospect puzzled me. Him getting NFC Offensive Player of the Week in Week 1 when he was terrible for 3 quarters and had like 160 yards was puzzling. The way the 9 alter ego thing was covered last week was puzzling. I am not a fan.
Yeah, for what it's worth, Mark had him number 49 on his big board.
It's that high
in that draft. I had him at number 33. So,
by the way, someone said I think that's a Family Guy meme. I think you're right. I think it is Family Guy, not The Simpsons. Got my cartoons mixed.
Yeah, I think it's Family Guy. I haven't ever watched either actually, but I've seen the meme several times and used it several times as well.
I think it is Family Guy. That's bad job by Mark. That's up there with Toledo.
That wasn't Mark. That was 9.
That was that was Junior.
Yeah, we're gonna develop alter egos for when we say incorrect things on the podcast.
That was good.
So, all right, let's keep rolling. Cleveland at the New York Jets.
You're on the clock. 1 minute warning.
All right, I don't even think I need a minute, but the Jets win 27-20. The Jets only had 62 yards in the first half, but they were tied 17-17 thanks to a 99-yard kick return for a touchdown and a 74-yard punt return for a touchdown. I'm even going to ask you a question during this, Mark, but I think you know the answer to it anyways. Justin Fields connected with Breece Hall for a 42-yard touchdown that was a screen pass. Outside of that play, how many net passing yards do you think Justin Fields had?
Oh, is it like 12?
0. He was
Here.
5 of 10 with 0 net passing yards and an interception. Um, Will McDonald sacked Dylan Gabriel 4 times in this game, so there were rumors he was going to move at the deadline. He had 5 quick pressures and 9 total pressures, just dominated this game, and that is about my minute. So let's move on.
58 seconds.
Yes.
I'll let it slide.
Perfect. New England at Tampa Bay. New England wins 28-23. Things looked bleak in this game with Tampa Bay trailing 21-16, and New England had a first and goal from the 3. But they threw an interception. It gave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers life, and they did go on a drive, faced a 4th and 3 with just under 2 minutes left, and they failed to convert. And they end up losing the game. The Bucks defense could not pressure Drake May in this game at all. May has been sacked 16 times in the prior 3 games. The Bucks only got to him once. They also allowed too many explosive plays, a 55-yard touchdown run, and 69-yard touchdown run, a 72-yard touchdown pass. Travion Henderson had a great game in this one, carried the ball 14 times for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. So New England picks up a good win over. It's a beat-up Bucks team, but it's a good win nevertheless for the Patriots.
This game came down very much to the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half to me. The Bucks kick a field goal to go up 10-7 with 7 minutes left in the second quarter. The Patriots proceed to go that 14-play, 78-yard touchdown drive that culminated in a touchdown on 4th and goal at the 1 in a goal line fade. That was so low percentage, it's not even funny. But Stephon Diggs made an incredible catch on a great Drake May throw, and it worked. But Shane, did you see the insanity that Mike Vrabel pulled down at the goal line here at the end of the first half?
Oh, yes. Jog my memory. They turned down the touchdown to run out more time, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I can't remember exactly how it played out now, but
so Tampa, they got to the 1, they had 3rd and 2 at the 6, and they get 5 yards down to the 1, and Tampa calls their last timeout with 1 minute and 44 seconds left. So the Patriots have the ball like on the inch line. It is like as close to a touchdown as possible. And it's very clear that Drake May just goes down. He hikes it. He hikes the sneak, and he doesn't go backwards or kneel. He just kind of goes straight down, so the ball stays in the same spot pretty much. And it's very clear they did it so that Tampa wouldn't get the ball back, or at least they'd get the 2nd and goal here. And you hike the ball on 2nd down with 1 minute and 3 seconds left. They handed it to Travion, where they tried to run up the middle. He just got stuffed. So they were on the 1. And then they handed again to Travion, 3rd and goal with 19 seconds left. He gets stuffed again, and you're like, wait a second. Did Vrabel mess this up now? And now they're not even going to get the points. It's 4th and goal at the 1. They got the kicking crew like ready to go out, and then Vrabel said like, no, and brought them back on and sent the offense out, and they run a goal line fade. And Stephon Diggs catches it in the back end of the end zone. And it's like, oh my God, if that ball does not get completed, Vrabel looks like such an idiot. But since it worked, kind of awesome. Kind of awesome.
Except for the throwing a fade part.
Yeah, of course. That's Josh McDaniels at his finest. But of course, Mike Vrabel gets away with it, and the big balls decision works out well for him because everything's working out well for the Patriots. And then, not to mention that, you get the ball after halftime, second play out of halftime, 55-yard run for Travion Henderson to the house for a touchdown. So you're Tampa Bay, and the last time you touched the ball, you went up 10-7 with a field goal with 7 minutes left in the first half. The next time you touch the ball, you're down 21-10. It with 14 minutes left in the third quarter. That's the game. That's the game right there. The Patriots won the game with that end of the half and the start to the second half.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep rolling. And Mark, I'm going to throw it back to you for the 1 minute drill here with New Orleans at Carolina, because I don't want to talk about that game. So this one's all you. You got a minute. Ready, go.
This is cruel and unusual punishment from Shane. Saints over Panthers 17-7. the Carolina Panthers' magical playoff potential journey, I think, came to an end as the team that makes less sense than any team I can ever remember in NFL history. Instead of talking about this game, Tyler Shuck was pretty good. Good for the Saints. Maybe he's better than Spencer Rattler, who Steven Ruiz has spent the last 3 months lusting over on Twitter. But the Panthers started out the year getting blown out by the Jaguars. 2 weeks later, they beat the Falcons 30-0. The next week, they lost 42-13 to the Patriots. 2 weeks later, they beat Dallas. 2 weeks after that, they lose 40-9 at home to Buffalo. The week after that, they go to Lambeau as a 13.5-point favorite and win as the biggest underdog in 2 years in Green Bay. And then they come out and they lose to Tyler Shuck. I don't know what the Carolina Panthers are, but get them all out of my life.
All right. Well, they are out of this podcast now for the rest of the episode. Brandon Russell asked thoughts on Bryce Young.
He stinks. He's another guy who's much worse than Bo Nix.
I bet Bryce Young is going to play so well the last 4 weeks of the season and give the Panthers hope for the whole offseason again. You feel like that's coming, right?
And they've also won enough games to pick 15th and not have a real path to a quarterback. Yeah, it's a bad. That we talk about the Giants being a great situation. They're 2-8. The Panthers, I mean, Dave Canales isn't getting fired, but what a bad situation for Canales. I mean, what is the path forward for Canales to figure this out? I mean, Steichen figured it out, I guess, so anybody can, but yikes.
Yeah. Feels like step one is admitting Bryce Young's not the answer. But
yeah, of course.
But again, I'm going to feel stupid every time I say that about any quarterback now after the Sam Darnold thing. So,
yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes maybe these guys just need more time and a change of scenery is what I think it ultimately comes down to. Sam Darnold would not be doing what he was doing now if he had stayed with the Jets. So
of course, yeah.
Sometimes you just have to make the decisions, and it wouldn't have turned out that way had you kept him, I think. But anyways, that's an interesting discussion for another podcast in the offseason probably. But let's go Jacksonville at Houston. Houston wins 36-29, but the Jags led 29-10 going into the fourth quarter and still managed to blow this game against a backup quarterback. They gave up a 65-yard touchdown drive, went 3 and out, 51-yard touchdown drive, 3 and out, and then a 93-yard touchdown drive. In the fourth quarter, the Jags dropped back to pass 6 times and only attempted 1 pass, which was batted down at the line of scrimmage. Otherwise, it was 3 sacks and 2 scrambles. Trevor Lawrence, Mr. Top 10 quarterback, according to all the quarterback experts, was thoroughly outplayed by Davis Mills in this game. Davis Mills did a good job of getting the ball to Nico Collins. I feel like you see that sometimes, the backup quarterback comes in and just spams the ball to the wide receiver one who hasn't been getting many looks. Nico Collins goes 7 for 136. It's only his second 100-yard game of the season. And the other one came all the way back in September, also against the Jags. So Nico Collins just needs to play the Jags every week. The Jags started 4-1. Now they've lost 3 of their last 4, and their lone win came against the Raiders by only a point in overtime. What are your thoughts on this one, Mark?
The Jags are evil. I had a very good gambling day, but my one loss that I took was Jags money line, and it was one of those. And I'm usually pretty good since I have all the screens going and red zone. I'm usually pretty good at not letting a game completely escape my attention. But I cashed this in my head, cashed the bet, cashed the ticket in my head. Very much thought it was over. Stopped paying attention to the game whatsoever. I actually had a big bet on the Patriots Buccaneers over, which cashed in garbage time. Thank you, Baker Mayfield, at the very end. So I actually locked in very much on that game in the fourth quarter and almost wasn't paying attention to anything else. And I look up, and the Texans are. I think it was. I'm trying to figure out the exact point in the game that I looked up at the screen, and the Texans were down 5, at the Jags 50 with the ball. And I was it was like a cartoon where I was like, what? It was it totally caught me off guard I thought the game was over, and yeah, you mentioned it. They were up 29 to 10 in the fourth quarter, and I'm trying to find the exact win probability. 98.4% with 12 minutes and 21 seconds left. 29 to 10. And how do you let that happen to Davis Mills, man? It's just embarrassing. The Jags cost any chance they had at even competing to make the playoffs down the stretch here, in my opinion. That spot will be taken from them quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, the Jags just feel like a cursed franchise at this point, to be honest.
At least they had their Super Bowl win over Kansas City on Monday Night Football.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the afternoon slate. Seattle hosting Arizona. This game was just not even worth watching. Seattle ran 22 offensive plays and they were up 35-0 because of 2 fumble sixes by Jacoby Brissett. And honestly, that's about all there is for this game. This should have been my 1-minute drill for you, but Sam Darnold only threw 12 passes in this game. That's how quick this game was over. And despite the low pass attempts, Jackson Smith and Jigba still had 93 yards and a touchdown. So honestly, that's all I have on this game. This game was over so fast.
The afternoon slate's a joke in general. We'll probably zoom through it pretty quickly. And I don't even want to talk too much about Seattle. We've talked a lot about Seattle, how real they are. I think they're very real. They're one of the 3 to 5 best teams in football. And we'll have plenty more time to talk about Seattle, especially next week. Seattle playing the Rams. Where is that game? It's in LA. So Seattle going to LA to play the Rams next week, which, by the way, next week's slate of NFL football is, in my opinion, like the best slate of the 2020s that I can remember. It's unbelievable. You have Eagles, Lions, you have Seahawks, Rams, you have Buccaneers, Bills, you have, I'm missing another big game on the slate for next week as I'm pulling it. Oh, Chiefs, Broncos as well. Even Jags, Chargers is a good game. Amazing slate next week. But anyway, back to the point. It is going to be very interesting about that game. I'm not going to bet that game. I think whoever wins that game is head and head with the Eagles as the contenders of the NFC, in my opinion. But I think the more interesting spot of this game is talking about the Cardinals and Jonathan Gannon. There was a report on Get Up. I forget who it was, someone on ESPN, that the Cardinals want to keep Monty Austinfort and Jonathan Gannon to try them out with a new quarterback. And I just want to say that I think that Jonathan Gannon has provided absolutely nothing to make you think that he should keep his job. They're 15-28 in his 3 years there. And in my opinion, if Jonathan Gannon got fired at the end of this year, I think it would be one of the least remarkable coaching reigns of recent memory. Like, because most guys are like so bad that you remember it, or the one and dones you kind of remember it, or most guys have like a 1 year where they pop up and make the playoffs. And maybe it's because Arizona is what they are and they're such like an irrelevant franchise with no fan base. But I don't know if there's ever been a more like irrelevant, nondescript reign of a head coach that lasted multiple years than Jonathan Gannon if he were to get fired. And if he doesn't get fired, I think that's a joke.
Yeah. All right, well, let's keep rolling to. This is a game I was excited about, and it just turned out to not be a good one. But the Rams at the 49ers. And the Rams jumped out to a 21-0 lead. And the 49ers did rally later. They made it a one-score game, but then the Rams pulled away again. They end up winning 42-26. Matthew Stafford threw 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. It's the 3rd straight game he's thrown 4 or more touchdowns with no interceptions. And only Peyton Manning and Dan Marino have longer streaks at 5 and 4 respectively. And so, he can move into second place on that list if he does it again this week. But right now, Matthew Stafford is on pace for 4,584 yards, 47 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions this year. And I'm here to tell you, I will never buy into these injury stories about him in training camp again, because this is like the 3rd year in a row they've pulled this. At this point, I want them investigated like the Ravens with their injury report shenanigans, because I think that's what's going on here. But The Rams ran 13 personnel on 45% of their plays. Sean McVay has used 13 personnel for 84 total plays in his first 137 games as Rams head coach. He has surpassed that total in the last 4 games. And so it's innovation on the fly. This is not what they came into the season expecting to be. And it's what they are now, and they're incredible at it. On the 49ers side, Mac Jones did play really well. He was 33 of 39 for 319 and 3 touchdowns. Honestly, I think it's going to be kind of hard to justify going back to Brock Purdy at this point.
Really?
I think you stick with Mac. I mean,
Wow.
we all know he's gonna have a bad game in 2 or 3 weeks, and then they'll flip
And then you
back,
can pull him, yeah.
and then Brock's gonna play good for a few games, and then Brock will have a bad game, and they'll go like play Mac in the playoffs. Like that's how it's gonna go. But Mac Jones has been really good.
He has been. I wonder what's going on there. Like Purdy was the third string in this game, so he was healthy enough to be the emergency backup, but not healthy enough to start. Maybe you're right, and that is what's happening. Like,
Yeah.
maybe Shanahan is quietly benching Purdy, which feels crazy after the contract that Purdy was handed.
Well, the contract was crazy to begin with.
I agree. I mean, we both agree, but I do think Purdy's better than Mac Jones. Is that crazy at this point to say?
I don't know, man.
Purdy did hit some pretty high highs at
He
certain
did.
points. And even last year, like we were pretty impressed by Purdy in some bad situations. So I think the more interesting question is what happens to Mac Jones in the offseason? Who pays Mac Jones too much money? Probably. Like, is it Jags bring him home to replace Trevor again?
No.
Is it Carolina?
Carolina.
The Raiders? Like, I'm trying to think about the Jets. I don't
Falcons.
know. Falcons could be the Falcons. I think it's interesting to think about where Miami, he replaces Tua again. He did it in college. There's a lot of interesting spots for Mac Jones, but I think he's gonna get a lot of money. I think he's gonna get a lot of money. San Fran is still favored to make the playoffs, like minus 320 over Chicago, despite not being in there or Chicago being over them right now because they're a half game ahead. But not a great showing for that Niners defense this week. Obviously, the Rams are really good, and the 13 personnel is a really interesting wrinkle. But man, I don't know how you could feel confident enough to trust the Niners here.
Yeah. And then let's go to Washington. This game was awful. Detroit wins 44-22. This would have been another candidate for a 1-minute drill, but Dan Campbell takes over offensive play calling, and the Lions just dominated this game. They scored on their first 7 possessions before they pulled Goff out of the game. Honestly, the most noteworthy thing that happened in this game was Daron Payne being ejected and then suspended for throwing a punch at Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, yeah, I don't know what was going on with all of that, but Daron Payne ejected and then suspended. I don't understand the decision to throw a punch at a guy wearing a helmet. I've never got that, but more power to you.
I'll ignore Amon-Ra's dumb touchdown celebrations in this game and move past the Amon-Ra Daron Payne situation. I will like to make it clear that Amon-Ra is on that JJ McCarthy list now firmly as on my hate list. But as someone who's always been on my hate list, everybody knows Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell did something very interesting this weekend and did something very smart, in my opinion. John Morton, the Lions OC, apparently the players really didn't like him. And especially Jameson Williams has been pretty vocal about not getting opportunities and all this stuff. People have not liked John Morton. So Dan Campbell took play calling duties over. I don't know if you saw that, Shane.
I did see that, yeah.
I think it's very interesting that Dan Campbell let John Morton call plays against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, against Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, against Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings, and then said, you know what? I think the time for me to take over the play calling duties is when we're going against a historically bad defense in the Washington Commanders that's given up 40 like 4 times at this point. So kudos to you, Dan Campbell. And if I was John Morton, I would hate Dan Campbell so much.
Wait till Dan Campbell walks back into his office today and says, "Hey, by the way, just so you know, Eagles are coming up next Sunday. Your turn. You're back up."
I'll take the Giants. I'm preparing for the Giants in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You can take the Eagles.
I want to develop this new system where, we talk about how good teams are coming out of a bye. Well, what if we just alternated weeks calling plays so we each have 2 weeks to prepare for our opponents? So, we're going to roll this out, and the way it's going to work is you're going to get KC and Tampa and Minnesota. I'll take Washington. You can have the Eagles. I'll take the Giants. You take the Packers. I'll take the Cowboys. You take the Rams. I'll take the Steelers. And guess what? You get Brian Flores again week 17. So
we'll figure out week 18 when we get there. We might be resting guys. We'll figure that out later.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
It's unbelievable. Dan Campbell is Mr. Public Relations. The guy there has to be a PR firm in-house in Detroit helping Dan Campbell make his decisions.
Yeah.
I will say my fantasy team thanks them for getting Jameson Williams the ball. I will say that. So shout out you, Dan Campbell. I do think Jameson Williams was being brutally underutilized earlier on in the year, and now you get him 7 targets and 6 catches, 119 yards and a touchdown. The guy is absolutely electric.
Question. Since, we're handing the play calling back to John Morton against the Eagles defense, but Dan Campbell's already going to be in the building, and there's another team with a star receiver that's kind of frustrated, and he's going up against a defense with a really banged up secondary. So what are the odds we can get Dan Campbell to call the plays for the Eagles next Sunday night?
It's funny. The call kind of talked about like that. They were like, Dan Campbell basically like called the offense for his star play. I guess Jahmyr Gibbs got a ton of touches as well in this game and did really well. They were like, he called the offense that Eagles fans are like harassing Kevin Patullo to call. It's like, they were like, he literally is just like getting the ball in his hands of Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs, and the Eagles are like, can we please get the ball to AJ? Whatever. Hey, 7-2.
7-2. All right. Sunday Night Football. This game was 3-2 going into the second inning when the Chargers bats exploded to put up 10 runs. Wait. Sorry, wrong sport. Blacked out there for a second. Basically, the Steelers and Chargers each go 3 and out to open the game. Then the Steelers kicked a field goal without picking up a first down. And that was their offense. They gained only 156 yards before a garbage time touchdown at the end of the game. Rodgers goes 16 of 31 for 161 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Justin Herbert fared better, but he paid the price, taking 5 sacks. He's now been pressured 177 times this year, which is the most in the NFL, and it is 21% more than second place. He's also been sacked 33 times, which actually only ranks third, which tells you a lot about Justin Herbert and his ability to not take sacks when pressured. I actually want to look up his pressure to sack rate now that I mentioned that, because I meant to and I forgot. But the other noteworthy thing in this game, Keenan Allen passed Antonio Gates for the most receptions in Chargers history with 956. What are your thoughts on this one, Mark?
Rodgers is cooked. I don't know if it was one of those things where he had 2 months of, it's not just being afraid to hit, which I feel like he was more afraid to be hit in this game than he had been since we were talking about it a lot in the first couple weeks of the year. But he was just missing throws in this game. There was a wide open DK touchdown that he just overthrew from a pretty clean pocket. And he was 16 for 31 in this game. And props to Jesse Minter, who, by the way, I think is going to get a job. Like I think he's one of the locks in this cycle to get picked up as a head coach. So I don't have much to say on this game other than to say people counting out the Chargers to make the playoffs because of the Joe Alt injury was probably silly. They're probably still better than Pittsburgh. I mean, we know that they are after that game, and they're probably still better than Jacksonville, and probably still better than whoever else you want to throw at me for the 7th seed in the AFC. So I think the Chargers, despite not having a functioning offensive line, will find their way to a wild card so Justin Herbert can poop his pants on national TV in the playoffs and people can blame him when it actually less than ever might not be his fault this time.
Yeah, the Steelers have won either 8, 9, or 10 games in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the last 7 seasons. And I think we are firmly on that 8 to 9 win trajectory yet again here. So we do have a comment here as we wrap this up, Mark. Brett Eclipse wants to know if your power ranking segment is returning this week.
I didn't prepare it, but I can do it on the fly pretty quickly, I think. I'm still saying Eagles, Rams, 1-2. Whatever way you want to order that, I'm not going to debate you. If you tell me Rams are 1, that's fine. If you want to say that the Eagles should be 1 until it's taken from them, that's fine too. I'll still put Kansas City 3. I'll put Seattle 4. I'll put Buffalo 5. Then is when it gets tricky. I'll put Detroit 6. I'll put the Patriots 7. I'll put Tampa 8. I'll still put Green Bay 9. And then 10. I said the Patriots. Okay. 10 is the Colts or the Broncos, whoever you take more seriously. Probably the Colts.
Yeah, give me the Colts.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it.
I'll put more effort into that going forward. That was on the fly. I'd have to think about those, but I'll tweet it out.
Yeah, I should try to think of some as well. That'd be fun exercise. But all right, well, that is going to about do it for this recap of all of the Week 10. It's Week 10, right? Week 10 action. Before we get out of here, Mark, any non-power ranking final thoughts that you want to throw out here?
Non-power ranking final thoughts. Chiefs team total over 23.5 against Denver. Looks like Stan's not going to play. And the Chiefs off a bye, Andy Reid, yada, yada, yada. Everybody knows all the stats with them off of a bye. But I understand everybody's jazzed up about the Broncos defense. Go look at who the Broncos defense has shut down. They did give up 32 to the Giants. They gave up a bunch of points to the Colts when they played them, a bunch of points to the Chargers when they played them. So I do think that I think the Chiefs have done it in 6 of their 8 games or something like that. So give me the Chiefs to put up some points in that game. Team total over 23.5.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you for joining us for episode 211 of Chalk Talk. If you enjoy what you heard on the show, and we know that you do, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications on YouTube, Twitter, wherever you like to watch live so you don't miss us when we go live. 5-star ratings and reviews are greatly appreciated on the podcast platforms. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Shane Huff NFL. He is at Mark Henry Jr. NFL, and we